Hi, I'm Holly Andrews, Integrative Nutrition Health Coach and Stress Recovery Coach. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the kitchen. Today is the final in our series of pumpkin recipes. I realize when you're watching this, it's probably already November, but the blog post for this recipe did drop on October 31st, so I'm still considering this part of the October series. So today's special treat is my ultimate fall pumpkin bread recipe. Obviously, we're going to continue to use the ingredients that make these pumpkin recipes still feel like fall, still feel like a treat, but contain those better for you, more nutritious ingredients that are going to help keep your blood sugar from doing that spike, help keep your cortisol balanced, and it's just a lot of them so chock full of nutritious goodness, you won't even really realize that you may not be having the traditional style recipes. So let's talk about what's in this pumpkin bread. Obviously, pumpkin puree. I have a cup of pumpkin puree in this recipe. I got the organic pumpkin puree from my local grocery store, their brand, but they're organic brands. So I love this stuff. We've talked about it, full of fiber, full of beta carotene, which converts to vitamin A in our bodies to help support our immune systems, which as we head into this fall season, lots of sweet treats season, right? We need our immune system to be strong and healthy. So that's gonna be really good for us, the pumpkin. And it's so good, right? I've used both almond flour and oat flour in this recipe. So if you don't have oat flour, you can absolutely make your own just by grinding some rolled oats. You don't want to use, probably steel cut might be a little bit too much, but rolled oats, they are 1-for-1. So a half a cup of rolled oats into like a food processor is going to grind up into half a cup of oat flour. So if you don't have oat flour, you can use rolled oats and grind them yourself. If you have like a little food processor or a mini food processor, no big deal there. You can make this recipe with completely using almond flour or completely using oat flour. We talked about some of the differences that you'll get in texture last week if you use oat flour versus almond flour. So I'm combining them in this recipe to kind of balance it out and give this a true pumpkin bread feeling versus a pumpkin cake or something else like that. So I've got the oat flour, which again is going to give us fiber. It is naturally gluten-free. If it's certified, well, it is naturally gluten-free. If you're celiac, make sure you're using certified gluten-free oat flour to avoid any potential cross-contamination there. And the fiber is going to help with the slow burning complex carbohydrates, so that means energy for a long time. And then the almond flour is going to help give us some healthy fats. So we've got vitamin E as well. We've got some magnesium and a little bit of protein from that almond flour. So combined, I love using those two different types of flours combined to make a gluten-free bread. So goodness there. We've also got my favorite maple syrup for some natural sweetness. The maple syrup has trace minerals in it, so you're gonna get some manganese and some zinc and that little bit of sweetness and that little bit of fall flavor contributing to that as well. We've got coconut oil, of course, as my oil of choice. So it's a healthy fat that's gonna help support stable blood sugar and brain health with those medium chain triglycerides, the MCTs. So we've got a couple tablespoons of melted coconut oil in this recipe. So goodness there. Eggs, of course, a little bit of protein, a little bit of healthy fats, some choline, right? Which is brain food. So goodness in the eggs there. And then I gave you some options for the optional add-ins. I went with both the pumpkin seeds because pumpkin bread and the chocolate chips. So the pumpkin seeds and the chocolate chips, they are both full of magnesium. The pumpkin seeds are going to add a little bit of crunch, whereas the chocolate chips are adding a little bit of those pops of extra sweetness. And so I love the combination of those two things. So let's talk about throwing this recipe together. One thing that I haven't talked about too much here on the channel is how gluten-free recipes, especially baked goods, behave differently than a traditional baked good made with your traditional all-purpose flour. Even if you're using the 1-to-1 gluten-free flour substitutes, they are still going to behave differently, meaning they're going to rise differently. So when you're working with a gluten-free baked good recipe, especially something like a bread or a loaf of some sort, I learned this several years ago and I wanted to share with you guys that to get a bread that looks like a normal bread, meaning it's tall, right, in a loaf shaped, you want to use a different loaf pan. So they actually make loaf pans that are taller and thinner than a traditional loaf pan. So I'm gonna try to back up and show you. So this is a traditional loaf pan. This is your traditional like 9x5 loaf pan. This is a gluten-free loaf pan. So it is taller and it is also skinnier. So what that does is it causes the loaf to actually be taller when you use this pan, so it looks more like a traditional loaf. If I were to have made this same recipe in this pan, it would have been much flatter because it doesn't rise like a traditional all-purpose flour loaf is. So this is from Norpro. I will find the link, and I've had this one for several years now. But if you are somebody that likes to make gluten-free baked goods a lot, I would suggest getting one of these. Now, if you don't care what it looks like, then you don't need to do that. But I like having this. I just think it makes the loaf turn out nicer when you have that final product. So just a note on that, I thought I would share it with you. Now to putting the recipe together. So I started out by mixing my dry ingredients. I had my almond flour, I added in my oat flour, and you'll notice again, I'm using my scale here to make sure I'm weighing out my flour ingredients because it is much better for the gluten-free baking to weigh out your dry like flours especially than to try to do it with a measuring cup. And you'll need to look on your packaging to get the exact measurements because every brand is going to be different in terms of what they consider a serving size and whether it's 2 tablespoons or 30 grams or whatever it is. So you'll need to do that math on your packaging if you want to weigh it out, and I would highly recommend that you do. So I got my almond flour in, I got my oat flour in, my baking soda, my teaspoon of baking soda, my half a teaspoon of baking powder, my teaspoon of cinnamon, my teaspoon of pumpkin spice, and my 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I got those all whisked up together. Almond flour and oat flour tend to be a little bit lumpy, so I wanted to make sure and get that as broken up and integrated as possible. Once that was done, I moved on to my wet ingredients. So I got my cup of pumpkin puree, my 2 large eggs, 1/3 a cup of maple syrup, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then I had melted my 2 tablespoons of coconut oil before we got started so that it could cool a little bit and not cook my eggs. So I mixed up my wet ingredients, got them really nicely smooth and blended together, and then poured my wet ingredients into my dry ingredients. I'd made like a little well with my dry ingredients, so poured those in, got that all mixed up really nicely, made sure to scrape the bottom of my bowl so there wasn't any flour hidden underneath that hadn't been incorporated. So got that really nicely incorporated, and then I added in my 1/4 cup of pumpkin seeds and my 1/4 cup of dark chocolate chips. Again, I used the allergen-friendly, allergen-free chocolate chips from Nestle for this, just to be on the safe side for my daughter. I'm taking this pumpkin loaf on her field trip this week, so wanted to make sure that we were good to go there. Then I lined my loaf pan with parchment paper and went to put in my batter, and then realized I hadn't actually sprayed my loaf pan, so I went ahead and I sprayed the ends of my loaf pan with a little bit of coconut oil just to make sure that nothing would stick. But I would recommend that you spray your loaf pan even if you're using parchment paper, just so that the ends don't stick, and I like to use coconut oil to do that. So I stopped to do that and then got the rest of my batter in, the rest of the, smoothed it out across, and then topped the batter with a few chocolate chips just for some visual appeal. Then I popped it into my 350-degree oven and let that go for, I put it in for 50 minutes. It's 45 to 55 minutes, so I put it in for 50 minutes, tested it, and then let it go for another couple of extra minutes just to make sure the middle had actually gotten cooked all the way through. And so my oven required 52 minutes. Yours will be different, especially depending on the type of loaf pan. If you're using a traditional loaf pan, yours may be done closer to the 45-minute mark. So definitely make sure that you are checking it for doneness. Let that cool and then cut into my loaf. And here is a beautiful slice. So you can see we've got some of the pumpkin seeds for the crunch, and then the chocolate chips for extra pops of sweetness. And I know that the kids are gonna love this on the field trip this week. So I hope you've really enjoyed our pumpkin series this month. You've got 5 amazing pumpkin recipes now, all gluten-free, all blood sugar balance friendly, all cortisol balance friendly. And stay tuned as we move into the holidays and some treats coming on the channel for Thanksgiving and Christmas both. Until next time, check me out on the social media at Holly Andrews Coaching. Grab my website, grab the recipes for my blog posts. If you want exclusive recipes just for my Recipe Vault members, you can check out the link for my Recipe Vault. I drop 10 recipes every month just for my Recipe Vault members. You'll never see them here on the channel, so check those out. And the November recipes are getting ready to drop, so it will be 10 fresh new recipes for you there. Obviously, you can check out my online courses. I've got a new mini course coming soon. I'm going to be recording that within the next week or so and getting that loaded into the community. I've got my free community you can join that's got recipes and resources, and I'll be planning some special workshops and maybe some Q&A sessions for the new year. So all kinds of exciting things. Be sure to check out the website for all of the ways that you can work with me. And until then, I'm Holly Andrews, and I believe that you can heal your stress from the inside out.